polluting waterways. The dyed water, and it is dyed water, it's not taken from a stream, features an image of a cow defecating in water. Te Papa has defended the display, saying that the water component of the exhibition has been taken out of context and is not intended to vilify farmers, saying that, look, the point of the display is that you can't always tell the health of water by what it looks like. Brown water can be healthy, clean-looking water can be unhealthy. That has done little to appease the rural community, which is in turn accusing the museum of anti-farming and an anti-farming agenda. Gary, I don't know what you make of this. National MP Todd Muller has tweeted about it, and many people are actually quite upset. What do you think? Is the museum, is our national institution being a bit tone deaf to the farming community? What do you think?
Well, no, they're allowed to do, I want the museum to do all sorts of things from all sides of the equation. Todd Muller often tweets about things to do with farming. He's very defensive of the farming community, and good on him too. That's his job, apparently. But I would like to know more about the display. From what I've just heard, I haven't seen it. I would like to think that it would have explained that the dye in the bottle wasn't actually bottled water from a farm stream in which a cow had defecated. But, you have to provide a bit of background there. Otherwise, it could be seen as misrepresenting the situation. On the other hand, we do have a problem with farming insofar as some farms, unfortunately, are still pouring polluted water into streams and not managing the waste products from cows and so on and so forth. That is a valid discussion that we need to have.
It is valid, and that's what the Te Papa spokesperson says, saying that, look, we are a national scientific institution nonetheless. Muller and others have said, look, dairy farmers have fenced almost all of the rivers and streams on their properties in the last decade, and cows can't get near them. That voluntary accord, Paula Penfold, in fact, I think it's up to the mid-90% of waterways are fenced off. And so farmers are feeling really grieved that, look, they're doing their thing. Then you've got the National Institution putting dyed water, brown water, or the visitors to the country can see a bottle of brown water, dyed water with a cow in it. What sort of look is that?
Yeah, I can understand that farmers are feeling under siege, but I think, I don't know, it's a bit ironic for Muller to be saying that this is out of context when actually what he's done is a little bit out of context, because it wasn't the only bottle there, for instance. There were other bottles representing, stormwater and forestry water and a number of other things. I don't know.
But would you like to have seen it been real water from a dairy farm? That would be much better,
probably.
Wouldn't it?
And, there's a variety of real water on a dairy farm. I remember doing a story years ago where I drank water from a stream. But on the other hand, there are recidivist offenders who are still pumping terrible stuff into the water. And there's another whole issue that's not just to do with cows, it's to do with the runoff from the nitrates and the rest of it. So, yes, it's a conversation that needs to be had. I think Te Papa was trying to educate, and maybe the execution wasn't particularly A+.
Okay. Well, let's go out on what I define as a power ballad. This is it, Gary McCall, Paula Penfold. Close your fists, raise your face to the sky and say, we got through the week.
Yes.
Brilliant being with you. Thank you so much for joining us for the week on the panel. I'm Wallace Chapman. Checkpoint next. See you Monday.
Whakarongo mai koe ki te reo irarangi o Aotearoa. This is Checkpoint on RNZ National. I'm Lisa Owen. E haere nei, it's not over yet. The Police Commissioner says the search continues for those still missing after Monday's eruption. 6 bodies are recovered from Whakaari White Island, but 8 families will spend the weekend waiting to hear if it's their loved ones or not. 2 are still missing. A Defence Force team of medics and bomb disposal specialists spent 4 hours on the volcano in hazmat suits, complete with gas masks and breathing gear. One of those still missing is believed to be in the water off the island. A police dive team is searching. The Prime Minister is due to hold a press conference and will go live to that when it happens. And in the UK, Boris Johnson's on track to claim victory in the election.
RNZ News at 5. Kia ora ko Susana Leata tēnei. The Prime Minister is about to begin a media conference in Whakatane, and we will cross to that live as it comes online. The bodies of 6 people recovered from Whakaari White Island are a step closer to being returned to their families. A team of 8 Defence Force personnel carried out a high-risk mission this morning to find the bodies left behind after Monday's deadly eruption. The bodies are on board the HMNZS Wellington. Police Commissioner Mike Bush says they are being transported to Whakatane Airport, where they will be received by whānau. Mr Bush says they will then be taken to Auckland for post-mortems.
There might be a need to return to the island at some safe point to recover any other evidence that might assist with identification. However, it's quite likely that forensics will enable us or forensic people with the sign-off from the Chief Coroner or the Coroner to do so.
And now we're going to cross to the Prime Minister in Whakatane.
Kanu te mihi kia koutou koutoa, no mahara mai ki te whare o Kaunihira, karakia, timatanga. Mā te mahano te kaho o te rangi me te waireo nā tūpuna tātou e manaaki tātou I te aki ina wakatoa. Ka tohu au ki te tōnuku, ka tohu au ki te toarangi, I tupu ihu ko nā pū, nā weu, nā more, nā pūkenga, nā wananga, nā tauira. Tēnei te roa te rapa no te takitaki te ahuru no nā rangi tūhāhā. Whakai kia rite, uhi, wero, haere mai te Māori, haumi e, hui e, tae ki e.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon. I'm Clinton O'Dear, the Group Controller for the Bay Plenty Civil Defence Emergency Management Group, leading this response here in Whakatane. I'd like to stress that the Bay of Plenty Civil Defence Emergency Management Group continues to be focused on providing welfare support to the victims, survivors and families for those impacted in this event. And we support the agencies that are operating on the ground in their efforts responding to this event. We are very grateful to the many people and agencies in the iwi, Ngāti Awa iwi from near and far that have come together to assist us in this operation. We are honoured today to be joined by the Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern. We also have with us Commissioner Mike Bush from New Zealand Police and Colonel Ryan McKenzie from New Zealand Defence Forces. I will briefly hand over to Mayor Judy Turner, Mayor of Whakatane District Council, and then we will go through to Colonel Ryan, and then we'll go on to Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, and we'll take questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Clinton. Good afternoon. I just want to take this moment to acknowledge the depth of feeling that has been present here in the Whakatane district today, and indeed across our seas and our lands afar. And I again recognise the respect that has been shown to those who have lost and the care that has been taken in these processes by all of those involved. I've been with the whānau and families directly impacted this afternoon, and I share in their grief and sorrow, as our community also joins me in that. We are offering our aroha, our embrace, and strength to everybody here at this time. I'd like to now hand over to our Defence spokesperson.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've been asked to provide some explanation and some input to 4 pictures that were released into the public arena this afternoon. They were photos taken in the early stages of our operation this morning at around 8 a.m. The photographs were taken from a Navy Sea Sprite helicopter that was supporting the initial stages of our landing on the island. The first picture, and I'll just hold it up so that you're aware of the one I'm referring to that's currently in the public arena, is a picture of the police launch Deodar. It is anchored off the jetty on the island. And at that point in time, what the vessel is doing is it's providing communications support and safety support to those people that are deployed on the island. Which you will be able to faintly see in that photo where my finger is here up high, is in yellow, is imagery of our people that are on board the island. They're wearing what is a yellow protective garment. The second photo that I will show you is this photo. It's in the public arena already. What that is an imagery of is 2 of our 6 personnel that landed on the island. They operated in 3 two-person teams. And what that image shows is them moving on the island. What it doesn't show, there's several things that I might explain to you, is the heat stress that those individuals are under, even at 8 a.m. in the morning. They are effectively wearing their military undergarments. On top of that, they're wearing a Nomex-like material that has seal around it and sealed cuffs and sealed at the ankles. And then on top of that item of clothing, they are wearing what you could akin to a light raincoat type material that is providing the outer layer of protection. Easily ripped, easily damaged, hence why they have an inside layer as well. They are operating with with a rebreathing apparatus, and the oxygen and the air inside that apparatus begins to heat up as they continue to breathe. Those breath cycles can reach temperatures upwards of 30 degrees Celsius. In and of itself, that's just wearing the suit. That's without moving in the suit. You'll appreciate these soldiers were then in the process of having to move about the island, up and down and over the terrain, and then also they had the task of handling the victims on the island. That had a physical exertion element to it. What that did require for our team at one point was to recover back to the jetty for effectively a rehydration stop, so that they could continue to operate at full capacity. I would finally add on my brief to you this afternoon is that I still have not had the opportunity to debrief the team. There's no update from my earlier brief to you. They remain on HMNZS Wellington and will be landed ashore sometime this evening. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. I'll be brief. I want to start by acknowledging the families who have experienced such grief and such loss since the extraordinary tragedy on Monday, and that today was all about reuniting them with their loved ones. We've just come from the airport where many of them were gathered, and in amongst what you can imagine is an enormous amount of grief and sorrow, I do want to acknowledge Ngāti Awa, who provided a process that, of course, is unique to Aotearoa, unique to Ngāti Awa, and many families commented to me on how important and special that was to them, so I acknowledge them. We know that reunification won't ease that sense of loss or grief, because I don't think anything can. But we felt an enormous duty of care as New Zealanders to make sure that we brought their family members back. Of course, there is a process now that needs to take place over the coming period of time. And for that, of course, we leave that in the hands of the coroner to do their job. But what remains left for me to say is an enormous thank you to all of those who are involved in the recovery operation today. I had the opportunity, even though the Colonel hasn't been able to yet, to visit the HMNZS Otago. And on that ship were medics, members of the New Zealand Police, St John's, scientists for GNS, and of course our Defence Force, all of whom played an integral role in the operation that occurred today. I can tell you from my conversation with them that they were humble people, they were true professionals, and that they carried out their role with dignity and respect for those who have been lost. I hope the time comes when we can all pay tribute to what they did today, because although the best science, best information available was used to try and make sure that we looked after them, there was, of course, a huge amount of courage still required to do what they did today. So my job was simply on behalf of New Zealand was to say thank you.
And that was Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern there thanking those involved in today's recovery. Now, if you're just joining us, a dramatic and risky recovery effort to bring home the bodies of those killed on Whakaari White Island has failed to find 2 of the missing. Specialised Defence Force teams scoured the island for 4 hours this morning. They managed to find 6 of the 8 bodies on the island, but 2 are yet to be located. At least 1 is expected to be in the sea, following a sighting earlier in the week and an attempt by police to retrieve them. Conditions made that impossible and they have yet to be located again today. Police say they're unsure of the location of the other person, but searches in the sea and from the sky are now underway as they work to track them down. The 6 bodies which have been located are being flown to Auckland this evening for autopsies. The risks on the island today were real, the Defence Force says. The advice given to them by GNS was that there was a 6% chance in any 3-hour period that the volcano may erupt. Police have released a satellite photo, and if you are watching, it shows where the recovery team came ashore at the jetty before walking in hazmat gear to protect them from the toxic fumes along a path to the east of Whakaari, making their way to the top northeastern side of the crater. At that point, 3 locations are marked with red and white crosses. 1 body was found at the first marker, 2 at the second, and 3 at the marker furthest away. Police Commissioner Mike Bush has been with some of the relatives of the dead this afternoon. I asked him if the families know which 6 of the 8 bodies have been recovered.
Look, that's a very difficult situation for everyone involved. Our way we approach this is we never want to set false expectations to have them later dashed. So we go through a very professional identification process that is signed off by the coroner or the chief coroner. That's the process we'll go through with these 6 loved ones. What's happening from here is probably within the next half hour. We were going to take them by vehicle to Auckland, but we've changed our plan. They will be taken by Defence Force helicopter to Auckland, where the identification process will take place.
So this is really important, so I want to be absolutely clear about it. Are you saying that at the moment none of those families know if it is their relative who has been found?
They have a good idea, but no one can be definite until we say that we have identified a particular person.
Right.
So we're really careful around that. So it's tough on everyone, but again, it's just so critical to get that right.
So I understand you're waiting absolutely for formal identification, but generally you have told the families if their relative is likely to be in this group.
We haven't even gone that far because, again, we don't want to make a mistake. I've just been with the whānau, the family, and the 6 that have passed. And again, it's just so tough for them not to know exactly whether their loved ones are there or
so
whether they're not.
let me put it another way, Commissioner. The 2 families that are still missing someone, have they been informed that you're still looking for their relatives?
Again, we are not in a position to say and identify those 6 that are missing. That we've found as to exactly who they are. And we've been really open with the families around that.
So you basically have 8 hopeful families. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that for all of those whānau that we cannot assure them that their loved ones are amongst those 6 until we've finished the process and the coroner has, to the satisfaction of the coroner.
So the 2 who remain missing, one you believe is in the water. Can you explain why you think that is the case?
Yes, earlier on this week a body was seen and there was an attempt between Navy personnel on a Navy vessel and police staff on Police Deodar to recover that body. However, that was unsuccessful due to fairly horrific weather conditions. And we believe, and of course you can't say for sure, but we obviously believe it was one of the people we're looking for.
Have you recovered, do you believe, the 2 bodies of the local guides?
Again, I can't answer that because I can't set false expectations.
As
much as we'd like to give assurance to the family, which is why we're here, we can't to that extent.
As we understand it, obviously the pilots who flew in the immediate aftermath of the eruption were very confident that they knew where all 8 people were. Did something change between them flying in on Monday afternoon and the recovery operation in terms of the locations of those people?
Look, I'm aware of the commentary around that, and again, and I'm sorry I have to keep repeating this, but we're not certain to the satisfaction of the coroner as to who these people are. So it would be just wrong for me to respond to that by being definite.
Okay. The other thing that was said is that they knew one of the local men and that they had identified him and his location on the island. So did the information they provided you prove accurate?
I'm aware of that commentary as well. I actually think it's dangerous to continue with that commentary. And I've been with those family members, a lot of us have in the last hour, and we've said to them we can't give any assurance either way, and we will work to identify those people as quickly as possible. I just think it's dangerous and not respectful to have those conversations at this point.
I understand. So in terms of the people you located, where were they? In proximity to the jetty where the recovery team landed? Were they all together, or can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right, so we're later on this evening we'll be debriefing those courageous staff, those Defence Force staff that went onto the island. What I can and what I have been told is that they were in the general area where they were expected to be.
Based on the information you were provided by the helicopter pilots who went in, or through some other means?
A variety of means.
Can you tell us a little bit about what information you had, where that came from?
I'm not being difficult here. It's just that my brief was that they were in the general location where they were expected to be, and I couldn't be any more specific. And I'm not trying to avoid the question, it's just that I don't want to give any misleading information.
So you mentioned that obviously you are looking at another recovery operation. You are searching, you have a dive team searching in the water around the island. What else will happen?
Well, we're in the throes of planning to revisit the island, but of course a lot went into today's operation, so a lot will go into that, but we are definitely considering with Defence Force going back to that island, as well as continuing between the police dive team and the Navy dive team, considering continuing the sea search.
So when you say considering going back to the island, within what time frame?
As soon as possible. But that planning is being undertaken by those experts as we speak.
So what's that going to be dictated by when you say soon as possible?
The same conditions of today, but you can imagine that...
So you could potentially go tomorrow?
Well, again, I'm not going to set false expectations. We have to give these people a rest. They are the right people to go onto the island, as they proved today, but they are exhausted, as you can imagine. So we have to give them some rest, and we have to debrief them. So there is a process to follow, but it'll be under the same considerations and with the same level of expertise that today's operation was conducted under.
Will it be the exact same team of 8?
Quite possibly, but there was a backup team as well, so we'll just see how they're placed.
Could you use the backup team tomorrow or over the weekend?
Quite possibly, but look, when the decision's been made, we'll communicate it.
So earlier in the week, the police indicated that a criminal investigation was underway and then walked that back. Is there a possibility of a criminal investigation?
Look, right now we're focused on the coronial investigation, and that's all I could say on that. That's our focus right now on behalf of the coroner.
So part of the recovery operation today was also to collect evidence. Was anything additional found on the island? Any evidence brought back?
I understand not. That is obviously another reason for considering going back to the island.
What are you expecting to find?
No, we don't know, but we'll be first going back to ensure that we haven't missed anybody. And if there is other evidence, whether it's clothing, whether it's digital, whether it's phones and cameras, we'll want to collect those things as well.
You are searching the water, as we mentioned, for one person. Do you have any information about where the other person may be?
No, we don't, but there are some locations that we would like to search.
And where are they?
On the island.
Specifically?
We do have some specific areas, but there was nothing located today. But to reassure ourselves, we want to go back and re-examine.
What conversations have you had with the cruise company, Royal Caribbean?
I did meet some of those people today, but we didn't get into any conversation. There was, as you can imagine, a service being conducted. Ngāti Awa were conducting that with absolute respect to everyone involved, and I would like to commend Ngāti Awa for everything they've done. So it wasn't the time to have those discussions.
Did they give any indication whether they're taking any legal action over what's happened?
We didn't get into that.
And have you discussed with them what warnings they were given about potential risks with their passengers going to the island?
No, we haven't got into that yet either. I'm sure they're all questions for the future.
And have you asked Royal Caribbean for any particular evidence or any items to be handed over?
Absolutely. There will be that's part of the disaster, the victim identification process. So I understand that's underway.
And so what have you asked of Royal Caribbean?
Is that related to your previous question?
Yes.
Yeah. So it will be in terms of collecting any evidence from the missing people so that we can match DNA, etc.
So you're talking about personal items to check against DNA profiles?
Yep, which is very standard in these processes.
When do you think you will be able to say who these people are?
I'd like to say very, very soon, but
so tonight really or over the weekend?
No, it won't be tonight. No, the 6 will be flown tonight to Auckland, and that forensic examination will start either tonight or first thing in the morning.
Do you anticipate that the families will be notified over the weekend?
They will be notified as soon as the coroner has signed off the identification.
Have you spoken to the families directly?
I've personally been with some of the families within the last hour and a half.
And have you got a message for them?
Yeah, as I said to them, that we are all, everyone in New Zealand is here for them, especially police, emergency services, civil defence, local government, the government. Everyone's here for them. and we just can't imagine the grief that they're going through. Our hearts go out to them.
And this weekend you will have 8 families, not 6, counting down the minutes to find out whether any of these 6 people are their loved ones. Is that correct?
That's right. And the professionals will be hard at work to make that happen as quickly as possible.
And that's the Police Commissioner, Mike Bush. Many of the severely injured from Whakaari White Island remain in burns units around the country and will face months of treatment. Dr Peter Watson is the Chief Medical Officer of Counties Manukau Health and joins us now. Good evening, Dr Watson. I'm wondering, could you start by just giving us a bit of an update? How many people remain in New Zealand hospitals and what level of condition are they in?
Sure, thanks, Lisa. So, as of now, we have transferred 13 Australians. That's all of the Australians who are in our hospitals who survived the explosion back to Australia. So that's been really important to be able to do, to return them to be close to their homes and families, and also to really take the pressure off our New Zealand burns units. So in New Zealand burns units now, we have 15 patients. 11 of them remain in a very critical condition with extensive severe burns. So that's the state, and that's across Waikato, Hutt Valley, Canterbury and counties here where we have the National Burns Unit.
Can you put it into perspective for us? Generally speaking, I mean, how many surgeries might some of these people have been involved in since Monday?
Well, generally, at this point, at least a couple of surgeries, but it's completely dependent on their clinical presentations. But these surgeries, as they start to stabilise, generally every second day, but again, it depends. But this has been a really long working week for all of the surgical teams, the intensivists and the burn surgeons and the nurses, etc. And I'm pleased to be able to say, at least in our hospital here at the National Burns Unit, we have, for the first time since Monday now, not any scheduled operations overnight, but of course that can change. But again, it will continue through the weekend, and we're getting to a stage now where we're also having new surgeons arrive. So we're in a very fortunate position to be able to have overseas burn specialists approaching us and offering their support, and the first one has arrived and will be joining our teams tomorrow, which is going to give much needed relief to our teams.
So where has that person come from, and how many more are you expecting?
So this person the surgeons come from Australia. We're expecting some more from Australia, but we've had inquiries and we're looking to also bring others from further afield. But at this point, we're processing and we've been working as fast as we can to get all the paperwork and all that done. But we're really pleased that the second person we expect to be joining us over the weekend. And what we're going to do is we're going to plan this out now over the next weeks and months, because this will be, for many of these people, a long period where they require further surgery and further intervention. Furthermore, a number of the people will be stable enough to be able to transfer back to their countries of origin as their clinical situation improves. So we'll be able to do that again, not immediately, but in the coming weeks.
You mentioned that tonight's the first night where you won't have surgery involving people from Whakaari White Island. So are you saying since Monday you've been operating a 24/7 surgical theatres to deal just with these patients?
Yeah, and that's alongside all our other hospital business. You know, we are a really busy hospital here at Middlemore, as people will appreciate, as our other hospitals. So this is on top of our other work. But we have had teams, our surgical teams, with our burn specialists and the wider multidisciplinary teams working 24/7 all week. But we've also been coordinating the response across the country and with Australia. And as you might imagine, that's been an enormous effort. And I'm just immensely proud of all of the incredible work that these people have been doing. They've done an amazing job in facing really challenging and complex medical conditions as a result of these burns that these people have suffered.
Given the volume of work that you have you been able to do all your elective surgeries, or have you had to put some of those off?
We've had to put some off, but we've also now started to work with our other here in Auckland, not necessarily in the other places, but here in Auckland we've certainly started to work with our other DHB partner colleagues, so they're actually picking up some of our work as well. So again, amazing coordination really across a system which has really been able to pull together, and people have all been really willing to be able to essentially pitch in and be able to do the work that's been required.
So how many surgeries have you had to cancel as a consequence?
I can't tell you the numbers at the moment, and they've been postponed, but we'll be looking to pick up that work, but also the other work that needs to be done. But we're working into Christmas and the New Year, so it's a challenging type of year to be doing this, but we have got the full support of our neighbouring DHBs to assist us with this work.
And what kind of help are your staff getting?
While the psychosocial support for our own staff is not to be underestimated, this has been hugely stressful. Beyond supporting the families, obviously, that we are now having extensive support in terms of welfare support and psychological support for our staff. But we've also been overwhelmed with offers from the community. People have been donating all sorts of things, and including amazing deliveries of amazing food and other supplies to the hospital. I've been personally taking numerous phone calls, people willing to offer, all manner of things to help us through this, and it's been remarkable really how New Zealand pulls together to support the hospitals in facing this situation, and our teams are doing their utmost, and we really want to thank everybody for supporting us.
This is, as you said earlier, really the beginning, because treatment like this continues for some time. How long do you anticipate that you will have this increased demand on services?
Well, we expect a number of these people to be in our hospitals for weeks, and then for some of them to be able to return, but for some of them that's a long journey back to the UK or Europe, so they will have to be significantly better before they can be moved. But we would expect any one of these patients with severe burns to be requiring hospital for several months. These are long-term patients in our intensive care and our burns units. But again, as we are able to support them to go home, which again I want to say I think is really important, because they'll be able to be with our family in their own communities, and we'll do that as we can. We will have and be able to do that as their condition permits. We have 2 New Zealanders in hospital, so obviously they'll stay with us.
Thank you so much for your time this evening. That's Dr. Peter Watson, who's the Chief Medical Officer from Counties Manukau. And coming up on Checkpoint on RNZ National, more on this morning's operation to return 6 bodies from Whakaari White Island. Brexit back on track as the Conservatives look set to win a majority in the UK's general election will go live to the UK. And the Christmas lights brightening up the children's ward at Hawke's Bay Hospital. We'd love to hear from you about anything you've heard on the programme this evening. You can text us on 2101, tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ, or there's always email. Our address is checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. Let's go now to Susanna with the headlines.
The Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, has just told a news conference that New Zealanders feel an enormous duty of care to make sure the families of those killed in the Whakaari White Island eruption are reunited with their loved ones. 6 of the 8 bodies left on the island were airlifted from Whakaari this morning and are being transferred to Auckland by helicopter for post-mortems. Ms Ardern visited the Navy ship, the Otago, to meet emergency services personnel, scientists and those who went onto the island. She says they are true professionals who acted with a huge amount of courage and showed dignity and respect for those who lost their lives. The Police Commissioner Mike Bush says it may be possible to go back to find more evidence to help identify those who died in Monday's eruption. Divers and an aerial search team are continuing to look for the 2 people believed still missing. The Defence Force says a specialist team who went on to Whakaari today were working in sweltering conditions and wearing hazmat suits and gas masks in the 4-hour operation. At a briefing a short time ago, Colonel Ryan McKinstry said temperatures reached 30 degrees Celsius or more inside the suits. The British Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, says he will not be leading the party into a future election after it suffered huge defeats in seats it has traditionally held as counting continues in the country's third general election in less than 5 years. Describing the result as very disappointing, Mr Corbyn blamed Brexit, which he says has overridden so much of normal political debate. Foreign Affairs Minister Winston Peters has announced further medical specialists will go to Samoa to support the response to the measles epidemic. Firefighters have contained a 100-hectare blaze near Karikari in Northland. The fire was sparked after a car hit a power pole near Lake Ohia yesterday afternoon. Those are the latest news headlines from RNZ National. Our next news and weather update is at 6.
Thanks, Susanna. If you're just tuning in, this is Checkpoint and I'm Lisa Owen. It's time for business now with Madison Reedy. Madison, you say house prices are on the up again everywhere or just some spots?
Most of the country, so yes, they are on the up again. In fact, actually just in Auckland, house prices have now recovered the past 2 years' worth of declines in the property market. Now that's according to figures that were released this morning from the Real Estate Institute of New Zealand. So they released what's called the House Price Index. That measures the changing value in the country's property market. So that rose 5.6% in the year to the month of November. Now the national median house price, which they also measure, that was up 8.6% to a cost of $630,000. Now, November was actually the strongest month in the past 14 years that the Real Estate Institute has seen with these figures. And that actually also saw record high median house prices across 10 of the regions, including Auckland. So an average house there will now set you back $885,000. Now, economists at the bank Westpac were pretty quick to say today that we told you so. They've been predicting for a number of months now 7% annual house price growth next year in 2020.
Do they think it's because of the cheap money, cheap loans, or what's driving it?
A historically low interest rate environment, which means that mortgage rates are the lowest they have ever been. But there actually was a drop-off in sales. So it seems that some house sellers are actually holding back because they do think that even though there are more first-home buyers in the market because they can get cheaper money now, that they may actually pay higher prices in the future. And these figures certainly support that. And Westpac is saying that they now actually might expect to see that 7% annual house price growth earlier than expected.
Interesting. Okay, so Z Energy, they have downgraded their guidance today, is it?
Yeah, they have. So this is the country's biggest fuel retailer, Z Energy, which is also listed on the market. They've today cut their earnings expectations for the year ended March by 10%. Now, they're now saying that they expect their underlying profit for the year to March to be between $350 million and $385 million. Still seems like a heck of a lot of money, I understand.
Yep.
But it is down from a previous forecast of up to $430 million. And that, in fact, was an already downgraded number when Z downgraded their initial expectations in May. So earlier this year, before May, Z was actually expecting to make an underlying profit of up to $490 million. So if you're a shareholder in Z, you take this double downgrade today. In total, $140 million has been shaved off the top end of Z's earnings guidance.
Are they in any way, shape or form pointing the finger at the government's reports on profit and some of the things that they might have to do in the future?
They're not necessarily pointing their finger at that, although Z has done that previously. And actually last time they released, I think it was their half-year profit last year, they did point the finger at, in fact, the government for saying that, they were fleecing consumers on prices, and also the regional fuel tax. They've said that has impacted their sales volumes. That, again, is a reason for this profit downgrade. Also, weaker refining margins, which is what they're earning at the Marsden Point oil refinery, which is run by New Zealand Refining in Northland. Z Energy, among with some other fuel retailers, do actually own a stake in that, and they're earning less money off that at the moment. Also falling retail margins, and again, those sales volumes falling off.
And what else has been going on the market today?
Yeah, so Z Energy's share price did take quite the battering as a result today. It fell 13% in today's trading to close at $4.23. Overall, the NZX Top 50 index fell 0.6% to close at 11,241 points. The New Zealand dollar, that's buying much higher at over 66 US cents at 66.2 there. Also at 95.5 to the Australian, but it is buying much lower at 49.1 against the British pence. That is because the British pound has surged as a result of the UK general election. That's because the market is now pretty certain that they're going to see Brexit delivered under Boris Johnson's reign.
Thank you, Madison. That's Madison Reedy with our business news there. And you would have heard Madison mention the election in the UK. Let's just give you a bit of an update. It seems that the Conservatives have taken a sledgehammer to Labour's heartlands, with all signs pointing to an overwhelming Tory majority. It began with a gain in Blythe Valley, a seat held by Labour since 1950. Then Wrexham, Labour since 1935, and Leigh, which Labour's won since the 1920s, went blue. Even the seats Labour held saw their majority narrow, and if the exit polls prediction is correct, it would be Labour's worst result since 1935, and we will bring you more on the UK elections later in the programme. 6 bodies have been recovered from Whakaari White Island, but the high-risk operation isn't over yet, with 2 of the missing still unaccounted for. Specialised Defence Force teams launched a recovery mission this morning in challenging conditions. Our reporter Sarah Robson is in Whakatane and sent this report.
Today, New Zealand Defence Force and police and other emergency services were able to recover those 6 people and return them to their loved ones.
That was the Police Commissioner Mike Bush announcing earlier this afternoon that the high-risk recovery operation had gone to plan.
The environment that those staff encountered was unpredictable, challenging, and those staff showed absolute courage.
The recovery team was made up of 6 men and 2 women, Army medics and members of the Defence Force's Bomb Disposal Squad. Colonel Ryan McKinstry describes what they were wearing.
A yellow hazmat suit with a hood. It has a closed-circuit breathing apparatus system, a gas mask, so that the operator, while they're all on the island, can operate within a closed system and be protected from any gases that may be present.
Colonel McKinstry says there was another team of 8 on standby if needed. He says the conditions on Whakaari were challenging and regular testing was done to ensure gas levels on the volcano weren't too high.
When we made our assessment of go, no-go on whether it was safe to do so this morning, our assessment in consultation with GNS Science was that there was a 6% chance in any 3-hour period that the volcano may erupt.
The recovery team had mapping of the area that identified roughly where the bodies of the 6 missing people were. Over 4 hours, they were able to locate all of them.
With the remaining air supply that the team had, they did conduct a search of some prepared zones where we thought there might be some success, and we were unfortunate that we weren't able to find anybody.
Family members were being kept updated about the operation's progress by the police, and they gathered at a marae near the wharf to wait for news. Deputy Police Commissioner Wally Homaha describes their reaction to the news that 6 bodies had been retrieved.
Oh, just absolute jubilant. You know, they were just like any family would welcome home their loved one. You know, these people have been waiting patiently. And just to hear the news that the recovery process has gone really well, I mean, they're just absolutely ecstatic. So we'll work with them until those bodies are released back to the families.
Mike Bush is hopeful that enough forensic evidence was gathered on the island to identify the bodies. But he says a team may have to return to Whakaari at a later date to gather more information.
There might be a need to return to the island at some safe point to recover any other evidence that might assist with identification. However, it's quite likely that forensics will enable us, or forensic people with the sign-off from the Chief Coroner or the Coroner to do so.
But the recovery operation isn't over yet. 2 of the missing still haven't been found. Mike Bush says they are making every effort to return them to their whānau.
We will, and we are this afternoon, returning with an aerial search of Whakaaro to see if we can identify anyone else on the island. And we are also, right now, deploying our dive team to search the surrounding waters.
Mike Bush says they know one of the bodies is in the water. An attempt to recover it earlier this week failed, and that's where the dive squad is now searching. The 6 recovered bodies were transported from the HMNZS Wellington to Whakatane Airport, and they will be transferred to Auckland this afternoon. E Whakatane, mo te hōtaka o te ahi, ko Sarah Robson, aho.
Families of those missing were the first to approach Whakaari ahead of this morning's recovery. Whānau of the 8 people still on the island were on a boat which headed out to the island before dawn. They were about 1 kilometre off Whakaari with Ngāti Awa for a blessing. Katie Scotcher reports.
At the break of dawn, whānau, friends and members of the Whakatane community gathered on the waterfront for karakia. Wrapped up in thick jackets and jumpers, they stood and looked across gently rippling water to Whakaari. Standing next to the cordon, which has become a makeshift memorial for those killed, was Poppy Rika. She rejected a job at White Island Tours, but Tipene Mangi, one of the 8 people missing on Whakaari, took it instead. Poppy says she has struggled to sleep since Monday.
Ever since the tragedy happened on Monday, my heart has been heavy. I've been so sad. It's just, I couldn't even sleep. I could have said, well, my family was like, that could have been you. And I was like, yeah, it could have been.
This morning's karakia was organised through a simple social media post late last night. The woman who made it, Wairaka resident Barbara Phillips, was amazed at the turnout. She says it's important to show support for the victims' families.
We've been following the journey and feeling the hurt and the disbelief, and we just wanted to come out to this morning and just do what we know how to do.
As the large group sang Waiata, others lay flowers at the cordon and embraced. Everyone in this small Bay of Plenty town has been affected by this tragedy. Ngāmihi Crap sat in a deck chair as she sang. She says she had to be there.
Well, I think it's important for anybody and everybody. You know, it doesn't matter whether you know them or not, you know, but it's in your area.
The wire fence blocking access to the Whakatane boat ramp has become the focal point for the community to express their grief. It's been carefully decorated over the past week with messages and hand-picked flowers. Security guard James Dean has become a familiar face to many. He's been stationed at the cordon since Monday night. He says the tragedy has been difficult to deal with, but he's heartened to see how the town's community is responding.
Watching people's reactions, watching the community come together, watching everything happen, it's been quite good for me because I love unity. I love people coming together. You know, I know it's a tragedy, but sometimes you see the true colours of people, you know.
As the community gathered on the mainland, 50 kilometres away at sea, a blessing was held with families of the victims. They were about 1 kilometre away from the volcano, the closest they've been to their loved ones since Monday's deadly eruption. Paul Quinn, the chair of White Island Tours, says it was an emotional morning.
Obviously they can't form part of the recovery team, but they were allowed to play a part in opening the way for their loved ones to be recovered.
The grieving families returned to the mainland at the start of the recovery operation, just before 8 this morning. As the White Island tour boat carrying them slowly moved into the harbour, they were welcomed by a kuia. Mark Inman, whose brother Hayden Marshall Inman was one of those who was still on the island, says it was an incredibly special morning.
There was a lot of emotion here. Yeah, there was. It was just a really spiritual, fulfilling morning, you know. But yeah, it was just one of those moments that you're proud to be a New Zealander, proud to be amongst the Māori culture, and full credit to Ngāti Awa for providing that opportunity for the families.
Deputy Police Commissioner Mike Clement met the families as they left the boat. They were then guided to Te Manuka Tūtahi Marae. The families who'd come from across New Zealand and Australia spent the rest of the morning together as they awaited news from Whakaari. I whakatāne mō te hōtaka o te ahiahi nei, ko Katie Scott Churaho.
It's 10 minutes to 6. I'm Lisa Owen and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. We are keen for your feedback as always. You can text us on 2101, you can tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ or email checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. The governing Conservative Party is on course for a decisive win in the UK general election. The Conservatives have taken a string of former Labour strongholds as counting continues. Exit polls predict a majority of possibly 80 seats in Parliament, an increase of around 50 on the Conservatives' tally in 2017. The incumbent Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, says it looks like his party has been given a powerful new mandate.
I don't want to tempt fate because clearly lots of results are still coming in and we're still only dealing with projections. But at this stage, it does look as though this One Nation Conservative government has been given a powerful new mandate to get Brexit done. And not just to get Brexit done, but to unite this country and to take it forward and to focus on the priorities of the British people and above all on the NHS. And yes, we will recruit 50,000 more nurses and 6,000 more GPs, and we will build 40 new hospitals. And I'm proud to say that one of those across the country, and one of those hospitals will be right here in Uxbridge and South Ruislip. And I'm grateful once again to the people of Uxbridge and South Ruislip for returning me to serve you. It is an absolute privilege to do this job and to work for you. And I thank once again the police, the council, everybody who's worked so hard all night to count for us, the returning officers. I thank my fellow candidates in all their glory, Lord Buckethead, and others, Elmo and others. Forgive me if I don't identify them all. But above all, I want to thank the people of this country for turning out to vote in a December election that we didn't want to call, but which I think has turned out to be a historic election that gives us now, in this new government, the chance to respect the democratic will of the British people, to change this country for the better, and to unleash the potential of the entire people of this country. And that is what we will now do, and if we are lucky enough to be returned, as the exit polls seem to suggest, then that work will begin tomorrow. Thank you all very much. Or rather, I should say not tomorrow, today. Today. Thank you all.
And that's Boris Johnson, who is counting on being returned as the UK Prime Minister. Meanwhile, the UK Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn says he will not be leading the party into a future election. Results are still coming in, but Mr Corbyn's party has suffered a huge defeat in seats it has traditionally held. After being re-elected to his Islington seat, Mr Corbyn described the result as very disappointing, saying Brexit took much of the blame.
Brexit has so polarised and divided debate in this country. It has overridden so much of a normal political debate. And I recognise that has contributed to the results that the Labour Party has received this evening all across this country. The issues of social justice and the issues of needs of people will not go away just because Brexit is dealt with in the way in which Boris Johnson presumably plans to deal with it at the moment. All those issues will come back centre stage in the debate, and the fundamental Labour message about justice and equality within our society is going to be one that is there for all time, because it's the very core of what my party believes in and what I will always advocate on behalf of my constituency and on behalf of my party. I want to also make it clear that I will not lead the party in any future general election campaign. I will discuss with our party to ensure there is a process now of reflection on this result and on the policies that the party will take going forward. And I will lead the party during that period to ensure that discussion takes place and we move on into the future.
Jeremy Corbyn, who appears to be the outgoing leader of Labour in the UK. Christmas can be a hard time for many families, even harder when you've got a sick child in hospital. But those in the children's ward at Hawke's Bay Hospital have been given something to smile about after a local businessman and self-confessed festive season enthusiast lit up the ward with thousands of lights. Anusha Bradley went to take a look.
He is, look at him. A little bit of festive cheer thanks to Flexilight owner Mark Williams, who came up with the idea during his own stay in hospital earlier this year.
I just had a bit of a mishap with a bit of an ulcer on the stomach and a bit of a close call, but yeah, you get through these things, yeah. The hospital's a great place when you're sick because there's no better care that you can get than in the hospital. But sometimes, you know, the place is a bit mundane, you know, you got nothing to do around, and a doctor showed me around the kids' ward and told me what they're all about and how they take donations, and I thought, yeah, it'll be great to try and light it up.
The result? Half a kilometre of fairy lights, 15 decorated trees, arches and lasers now adorn the children's ward. Paediatric nurse Di O'Connor says it's lifted the spirits of patients, their whānau and staff.
But this is just gorgeous, and you notice the children stopping at the trees, and I have to say it's not just the children. The nurses have all had their photo taken with the reindeer, with putting their heads through that, had a lot of fun, and yeah, there's been a lot of enjoyment from adults and children.
Oh, beautiful. Really, really beautiful. Yeah, just love it.
Pani Martin, whose daughter Alia is a regular inpatient due to a chronic lung condition, says the decorations are a welcome distraction.
We come in every 3 months for 2 weeks. But being here is like a second home to us. It's really cool. My girl helped the specialist put everything up, so yeah, I'm very happy for her. Very, very happy and proud of her.
Are they pretty, the Christmas lights?
Yeah.
Yeah. Elise Field's 5-year-old son Luca, another regular patient, also approves.
They're absolutely amazing. The kids love them. And it's so special for them to have something to look at when they come in.
It's not just the children's ward that's all lit up. Mr Williams' Napier home is a well-known attraction in the Bay each Christmas.
We get about 10 to 20,000 people past every year. I branched out and did my neighbour's house as well this year. I've always been a fan of Christmas. I've got 7 trees in my own house. So yeah, I like to go over the top, way over the top. Everybody that comes to my home or sees the lights leaves smiling. There's no negativeness. Everybody's just happy.
And he hopes the lights in the children's ward will make these very special kids a little bit happier too. In Napier for Checkpoint, Anusha Bradley.
And before we head into the news, just a recap on the Whakaari White Island recovery operation and also the injured people who remain in hospital. Dr Peter Watson, the Chief Medical Officer at Middlemore Hospital, has confirmed that 15 patients remain in hospital in burns units around the country. Many of them are in critical condition. 13 Australian patients have all been airlifted back to Australia, so that means all the Australian nationals have returned to Australia for treatment. Tonight will be the first night that they are not operating an overnight theatre to deal with the burns victims there. From Monday, till today, they've been operating a 24-hour, 7 days a week operating theatre for the burns victims. There are relief doctors arriving from other countries, and in fact one has arrived from Australia to help them out, and treatment of those patients will go on for months, he says. So we know that 6 bodies were recovered from the island today. There are 8 people were missing, and now 8 families will spend the weekend waiting to hear if their loved one is among those recovered. The police say they have asked the cruise ship company to provide personal items for people so that they can do DNA testing and checking. More after the news.
RNZ News at 6. Ngā mihi nui, ko Susana Leata with tēnei. The Prime Minister has met the team who braved the possibility of another eruption to recover bodies from Whakaari White Island. 6 bodies were airlifted from the volcano this morning and are being transferred to Auckland by helicopter. Divers and an aerial search team are continuing to look for the 2 people believed still to be missing after Monday's eruption. Jacinda Ardern visited the Navy ship the Wellington to meet emergency services personnel, scientists and those who went onto the island. She says they were true professionals who acted with dignity and respect for those who lost their lives, and with a huge amount of courage.
Reunification won't ease that sense of loss or grief, because I don't think anything can. But we felt an enormous duty of care as New Zealanders to make sure that we brought their family members back.
The Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern. The Defence Force says the specialist team who recovered the bodies today were working in sweltering conditions. The team of 8, 6 men and 2 women, used hazmat suits and gas masks during the 4-hour operation. Colonel Ryan McKinstry says temperatures reached 30 degrees Celsius or more inside those suits.
That's just wearing the suit. That's without moving in the suit. You'll appreciate these soldiers were then in the process of having to move about the island, up and down and over the terrain, and then also they had the task of handling the victims.
Colonel Ryan McKinstry. All 13 surviving Australian victims of the volcano tragedy have been transferred back across the Tasman. 15 people injured in the Whakaari eruption remain in burns units around the country, and many will face months of treatment. The Chief Medical Officer of Counties Manukau Health, Dr Peter Watson, has told Checkpoint some will need ongoing surgery for a long time. He says Middlemore Hospital's burns unit has been working 24/7, and tonight will be the first night surgeons are not operating since Monday. But he says donations and deliveries of food and other supplies from the community has helped during a hugely stressful time. Some elective surgery has had to be postponed. The governing Conservative Party is on course for a decisive win in the UK general election. Exit polls predict a majority of between 60 to 80 seats in Parliament, an increase of up to 50 in their tally in the last election in 2017. The incumbent Prime Minister Boris Johnson says it looks like his party has been given a powerful new mandate.
I don't want to tempt fate because clearly lots of results are still coming in and we're still only dealing with projections. But at this stage, it does look as though this One Nation Conservative government has been given a powerful new mandate to get Brexit done.
Boris Johnson. The Liberal Democrat leader Jo Swinson has lost her seat, and the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn says he will not lead the party into a future election. The Foreign Minister has announced further medical specialists will go to Samoa to support the response to the measles epidemic. Winston Peters is in Samoa with the Minister for Pacific Peoples, Aupito William Seo. Political reporter Yvette McCullough has the details.
Mr Peters says Samoa's health system has experienced a massive strain, and workers are facing exhaustion as they deal with the volume and complexity of patients needing care. He says New Zealand's medical specialists will travel to Samoa to work alongside Samoan colleagues and international partners. The package includes Samoan-speaking medical personnel and trauma support for health workers and impacted communities, and a Samoan-speaking biomedical engineer to support the installation and operation of new medical equipment. It also includes up to 4 anaesthetists to support surgical teams and funding for a new oxygen generation plant for the National Hospital. From Parliament, Yvette McCullough.
Te Papa's new chief executive says she is looking forward to building closer relationships with scientists after controversial restructurings under her predecessor. Courtney Johnston, who is 40, is currently the museum's Director of Audience and Insight and the first internal applicant to get the top job. Ms Johnston says it's too early to say whether she will be revisiting some of the more controversial decisions to axe long-serving natural history experts, which outraged the international scientific community.
I think the science community wants what every community that we work with wants, which is to know that we're building collections and caring for them properly, that we're carrying out academic and rigorous research and that we're sharing that with the public, that we're working with them to achieve their goals as well as to achieve the things that we're trying to do.
Courtney Johnston will take over as Chief Executive from Geraint Martin next week. Firefighters have contained a 100-hectare blaze near Karikari in Northland. The fire was sparked after a car hit a power pole near Lake Ohia yesterday afternoon. A resident evacuated from the fire, Carol Stentner, says tinder-dry conditions and high winds had been hampering efforts. Fire and Emergency says all those evacuated have now returned home. It's coming up to 6:05. Auckland, Hamilton, Wellington, Christchurch and Dunedin will all host games under a joint bid by New Zealand and Australia to host the 2023 Women's Football Cup. 32 nations will compete at the tournament, up from the 24 which competed in France this year. Sports editor Stephen Hewson reports.
The AS1 joint bid pits New Zealand and Australia against Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Japan, South Africa and North and South Korea, who've all expressed interest in hosting the tournament. Sports Minister Grant Robertson says when the size of the tournament was expanded, a joint bid was the sensible way to go. However, he won't say just how much hosting the tournament will cost. Under the bid, New Zealand would host the tournament opener, along with other pool matches and elimination games, including a semi-final, while Australia would get the final. A decision on the tournament host is due to be made by football's governing body, FIFA, in May. This is Stephen Hewson.
New Zealand Cricket have confirmed debutant fast bowler Lockie Ferguson won't be able to bowl again in the first test against Australia because of a calf injury. Ferguson only came into the side for the Perth test after Trent Boult was ruled out with a side strain. Play on day 2 has just got underway with Australia 248 for 4. But Black Caps pace bowler Neil Wagner is adamant a couple of quick wickets will wrest back control off the hosts.
We can come again, hopefully put the ball right area for a long period of time, create a bit of pressure. You never know, if you can put 2 quick wickets on it, like we've done in the past, it could swing the game usually again in our favour.
Neil Wagner. The former All Blacks and Taranaki prop Brian Jazz Muller, who was famed for trimming his hedges with his lawnmower, has died. He was 77. That's the news.
Tonight on Nights, there's a fruit-filled edition of Country Life, with a little bit of bull semen thrown in for good measure. Bo Runga selects the mixtape. The late Rick Bryant fills out our Friday Night Live slot. And Michelle Neuvolt presents a brief guide to the element tin, which is also the subject of our Sonic Tonic. On Nights, it's in the can, with me, Brian Crump, after the news at 7 on RNZ National.
Now the short forecast from Met Service to midnight tomorrow. Northland, Auckland, Coromandel and Bay of Plenty. Mainly fine tonight, showers developing tomorrow. Some heavy and possibly thundery. Gisborne and Hawke's Bay fine tonight. Showers becoming frequent and widespread tomorrow afternoon with possible thunderstorms in Gisborne and North of Hawke's Bay. Waikato to Kapiti, including central high country. Fine apart from a period of rain from this evening until tomorrow morning. For Wellington and Wairarapa, also Nelson, Marlborough and Canterbury, mainly fine but brief rain in Wellington tonight. Bulla, Westland and Fiordland, occasional showers, rain developing in Fiordland late tomorrow. Otago and Southland, showers tonight, some heavy, possibly thundery. Fine, apart from isolated afternoon showers tomorrow. Chatham Islands, occasional rain, low cloud or fog. RNZ National, it's 6:08.
Thanks, Susanna. This is Checkpoint. I'm Lisa Owen. Families of the 8 people who were missing on Whakaari after Monday's eruption still don't know if their loved ones are among the six bodies removed from the island. Defence Force teams today spent 4 hours recovering 6 bodies from the island, but 2 are yet to be found. Police say they believe one is in the water following a sighting earlier in the week, and it's possible the other one is there too. dive crews have been looking for them but have yet to find anything. It's been a dramatic day in Whakatane, which has been ground zero for the dramatic recovery mission. Here is a glimpse of how it all unfolded. 4:30 a.m. and the families of those still on Whakaari White Island board a boat and head out to sea for a karakia. By sunrise, choppers buzz in the skies above Whakatane. Locals gather at the boat ramp, waiting and hoping. The first official police update lands in email inboxes just after 7 a.m. It confirms the blessing at sea. The families are en route back to the mainland. And this, the crucial last line. The operation to recover the 8 bodies on the island has commenced. Here's Deputy Police Commissioner Mike Clement, Wharfside.
There are many things that could go wrong with the plan, given that we don't control all of the circumstances. But for the time being, our planning is playing out as we had hoped.
The second update from police arrives 8:25-ish. Economical and to the point. The recovery team has landed on White Island. It's Colonel Ryan McKinstry's team on the ground.
There was a 6% chance in any 3-hour period that the volcano may erupt. 6% chance in any 3-hour period. That met our threshold, our health and safety requirements, that it would be reasonably safe enough for us to put people on the island.
Almost an hour later, eagerly anticipated Update 3 is in. It seems promising. The recovery operation is, quote, going to plan. The team is where the majority of bodies are believed to be and conditions are good. The mission, it reports, is taking more time than police expect due to the heavy and restrictive protective gear worn by the team. Here's the Defence Force's Colonel McKinstry again.
Paint a picture for you is a yellow hazmat suit with a hood. It has a closed circuit breathing apparatus system, a gas mask, so that the operator, while they're all on the island, can operate within a closed system and be protected from any gases that may be present.
Time ticks on. 10:10, Update 4 has a few more morsels of information. The team is, it says, well advanced with the recovery. The mission's expected to continue for another couple of hours. Conditions on the island remain favourable.
It's pretty good. The wind direction's not perfect, but we can work with the wind direction. The volcano is behaving. The sea state is manageable in terms of people getting people on and off the island. So all of those things are within our favour at the moment.
10:32 brings police update 5. 6 bodies are being prepared for airlifting to the HMNZS Wellington. There's no mention of the 2 others. About 20 minutes later, police confirm 1 body is on the Wellington. Update 7, 11:15 a.m, 1 line. 6 bodies have been successfully recovered from Whakaari White Island and are now on board HMNZS Wellington. It's what it doesn't say that catches the eye. We know there are 8 people missing. An hour 15 on and police update 8 confirms 6 bodies will shortly be returned to the mainland before being transferred to Auckland. The recovery team is safe and well on board the Wellington. It acknowledges their bravery and dedication. Still no word on the final 2 until this from Police Commissioner Mike Bush.
Today, New Zealand Defence Force and police and other emergency services were able to recover those 6 people and return them to their loved ones. The operation today went to plan, and I would like to recognise the expertise of the New Zealand Defence Force staff who, supported by New Zealand Police staff and other emergency services staff, completed today's mission. But it's not over yet. We do believe that at least one of them is in the water, and the other one we are unsure, So it only leaves two possibilities. One is still on the island and we haven't located them, or they too are in the water.
And that was Police Commissioner Mike Bush, who also said that they are considering another recovery operation. It is almost 15 minutes after 6. You're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Boris Johnson's Conservative Party has won a landslide victory in the UK general election. It hasn't been a good outcome for the Labour Party, which has suffered a huge defeat in seats it has traditionally held. Its leader, Jeremy Corbyn, has announced he won't be running for future elections. Lydia Batham reports on how the votes came in.
As the clock struck 10, polling stations closed and the exit poll was announced.
Our exit poll is suggesting that there will be a Conservative majority when all the votes are counted after this election of December 2019.
Around the country, the counting began. In Newcastle and Sunderland, the race was on to be the first to declare. It's an almost military-style operation. A chain of people passed boxes through to the counting centre. They then ran to the correct table where the boxes emptied and counters swiftly sift through the slips, checking and bundling them. But no record was broken this year. It took just shy of an hour and a half to get a result. Then, 3 came in a matter of minutes. Newcastle Central took the title for fastest and expected Labour hold. Sunderland next, Labour 2. Then the first chip in the red wall. Blythe Valley, a seat held by Labour since 1950, went to the Conservatives.
Ian Levy, the Conservative Party candidate, 17,000.
Results trickled in, and then the blue tide began. Wrexham, Labour since 1935. Workington, Labour since 1979. Darlington, Labour since 1992, among others that went to the Conservatives. Almost all the seats Labour held saw their majority narrow. Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn held his Islington North seat and used his victory speech to announce this will be the last time he leads Labour into a general election. But he'll stay on for now.
I want to also make it clear that I will not lead the party in any future general election campaign. I will discuss with our party to ensure there is a process now of reflection on this result and on the policies that the party will take going forward. And I will lead the party during that period to ensure that discussion takes place and we move on into the future.
Soon after, Boris Johnson was returned in Uxbridge.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all very much. And listen, I don't want to tempt fate, because clearly lots of results are still coming in, and we're still only dealing with projections. But at this stage, it does look as though this One Nation Conservative government has been given a powerful new mandate to get Brexit done. And not just to get Brexit done, but to unite this country and to take it forward and to focus on the priorities of the British people.
While the Conservatives swept through England, the SNP gained in Scotland, including taking the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Jo Swinson's seat. As more results come in, more dots on the map continue to turn from red to blue. The Tories are creeping closer to the 326 seats needed for a majority, and a Boris Johnson victory speech on the steps of Downing Street's looking more and more likely in the coming hours. For Checkpoint, Lydia Batham.
And just to confirm, in the last few minutes, the Conservatives have secured more than the 326 seats needed to govern alone. And for more on this, I'm joined by our correspondent, Ollie Barrett in London. Ollie, how much of a thrashing has this been for Labour?
Well, we still have some seats still to come in, and actually the Labour Party has got a few more seats than the exit poll initially predicted, but this is an absolute drubbing, being no doubt for the opposition Labour Party. They have gone backwards, and they've gone backwards fast, and they've gone backwards in some seats that they have held for decades and decades, particularly in the north of England and in the Midlands as well. Some seats that you just wouldn't have thought that the Conservatives could possibly take from Labour in recent years have just changed hands, and the Conservatives' strategy of targeting many of those seats which voted for Britain to leave the European Union in 2016 but have traditionally been Labour seats appears to have paid off.
So, do you think in the scheme of things, it's a vote for Brexit, or was it a vote rejecting Jeremy Corbyn?
I think there's a little bit of both of those things at play. Jeremy Corbyn came into this election as the most unpopular leader of a major party in modern history. And Labour activists up and down the country were saying that time and time again they were finding on the doorstep that voters were saying to them they just couldn't vote for this man. So clearly Jeremy Corbyn's unpopularity played into all of this. But at the same time, Brexit was crucial too. Many voters felt that the Conservative Party's position on Brexit was at least clear. They also felt, many voters, that they did want to start to move on from Brexit and the paralysis in Westminster, and clearly more of them felt that the Conservatives offered that way out than the opposition Labour Party did. Jeremy Corbyn went into this election saying that if Labour won, there would be a second referendum on Brexit, but saying that he would remain neutral in that second referendum. And it does appear that some voters have punished the Labour Party for that lack of clarity and perhaps a lack of leadership, some of Jeremy Corbyn's critics would say, on the Brexit issue.
And some of those critics from within his own party even. So what fate lies ahead for Jeremy Corbyn?
Well, he's already said that he will not fight the next general election, but he's also saying that he wants to remain leader for what he's describing as a period of reflection. Now, there will be some MPs in the Labour Party and some members of the Labour Party too who will not want to allow Jeremy Corbyn to remain in charge for whatever that period of reflection amounts to. Some of them will try and move him on more quickly than he would like, but certainly he's going. It's just a case of exactly when. And then it becomes a question of whether Corbynism becomes something that persists and continues within the Labour Party. Will it be one of his close circle of allies that takes over the leadership of the party, or will the Labour Party move in a different direction entirely, given the results we're seeing coming in now?
So Boris Johnson has promised a withdrawal agreement by Christmas and out by January, but is that achievable?
I think it's very likely now that the UK will leave the European Union by January the 31st. Of course, one of the big barriers to that so far has been that even when Theresa May and then Boris Johnson did reach Brexit deals with Brussels, they couldn't get them through the House of Commons. Well, Boris Johnson will not have that problem now. Yes, the timetable might have to be slightly rushed given the Christmas breaks going to get in the way, but certainly he has the backing of his MPs to get this done. Then it becomes really a matter of what comes next. That will take Britain into a transition period, and the idea is, and Boris Johnson has been saying throughout the election campaign, that he can then reach a fully fledged trade deal with the European Union by the end of next year. That is the bit that anyone who's worked in international trade negotiations says it looks really, really hard, if not impossible. So part of his calculation will have to be, does he want to go for a sort of bare bones trade agreement that could be done with the European Union by the end of next year? Or given that he's looking at a pretty thumping majority, will he think that actually he's strong enough to perhaps delay the process a little bit and make sure that the trade deal that is reached with the European Union is comprehensive and in Britain's interests?
Ollie, before you go, can you give us a quick whip round as to how the others fared? The SNP et al., how'd they do?
The SNP have done very, very well in Scotland, and that is going to be a central challenge, I think, for the Boris Johnson premiership coming up, because that idea of nationalism and independence for Scotland is going to be front and centre for the SNP, and they will have more MPs in Westminster to advance that case, and the leader of the SNP, Nicola Sturgeon, is going to insist there's a mandate now for another independence referendum. The Liberal Democrats have not done as well as they would have hoped, and the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Jo Swinson, has lost her own seat. So she is another leader that is, already on the way out, effectively.
Good to talk to you, Ollie. That's Ollie Barrett, our correspondent in London, where the Conservatives have, won the majority. Boris Johnson remains the UK Prime Minister. New Zealand and Australia have launched a joint bid to host the Women's Football World Cup in 2023. 32 nations will compete at the tournament, up from the 24 which competed in France this year. The As One joint bid pits New Zealand and Australia against Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Japan, South Africa and North and South Korea, who have all expressed interest in hosting the tournament. Sports Minister Grant Robertson told sports editor Stephen Hewson when football's governing body FIFA increased the size of the tournament earlier this year, it made sense to link with Australia.
Both countries rightly believed that they could host the tournament when it was a little smaller. From New Zealand's perspective, at 32 teams, that would have been a stretch for us. From Australia's perspective, we add some really interesting and different elements in terms of partly from being from a different football federation, but also in terms of cultural aspects and just broadening the appeal for sponsors, for visitors, and so on to be part of a tournament that cuts across two countries.
Hosting these tournaments, though, doesn't come cheap, does it? What would you expect the total cost to be, and the part that New Zealand would have to front up with?
Look, this will be a multi-million-dollar effort for New Zealand, and the government has committed to a significant amount of resources. The final number is yet to be confirmed, but, if we are successful in hosting this, the spin-off benefits will be enormous. Yes, this will be a multi-million-dollar contribution to get this going. We'll partner, obviously, not only with our Australian friends, but internally within New Zealand, with local government, with New Zealand football, and come together with a pretty strong contribution. The costs are obviously being shared, between different sides of the Tasman, and that again strengthens the bid.
Presumably, though, you know what you're letting yourself in for. So what is the total cost going to be?
Yeah, well, no, because that's still to be finalised once we see exactly where the tournament lands. But this is a multi-million-dollar contribution from New Zealand.
But making that commitment, you presumably got to know what you're up for. Well, I'd hope you would.
We certainly know what the outside limits are, but I don't think at the moment that's helpful until we finalise exactly where things are at, and that'll emerge as the bid goes on.
Who gets to host the playoff matches, quarterfinals, semis and finals?
Yeah, still working our way through that, but fairly obviously you'll be looking for large venues, and in New Zealand we're looking at Eden Park, Wellington Stadium. This is a good incentive for the Canterbury Stadium to be completed, Waikato and Dunedin as well, and so we'll work through that with those venues, but clearly as we get to those playoff matches, you're wanting the maximum possible venue to get those big crowds in.
Would you expect New Zealand to at least get a semi-final?
At this stage, yes, that's exactly the plan. We're looking at the fact that we will host the opening match of the tournament, which is obviously a really prestigious occasion. Then we'll have the groups hosted across the two nations, and then the playoff games shared, including semi-final matches. Clearly, Australia would host the final as the biggest country and with the largest stadia, but there'll certainly be quality football in New Zealand right up to those semi-final stages.
And that's Sports Minister Grant Robertson speaking to Stephen Hewson. FIFA will make a decision on the host nation or nations in May. It's boxed wine, but not as you know it. A London-based company has redesigned the wine bottle to be more environmentally friendly, lower in transport costs and able to fit through your letterbox. Adam Reid reports.
Coming through a letterbox near you, a bottle of wine that could be posted right through your front door. Flat bottles produced by Garçon Wines claim to be environmentally friendly, lower in transport costs and able to fit through your letterbox. The London-based company has taken the traditional bottle shape and squashed it, meaning it's still able to hold the usual 75 centilitre volume, just in a longer, flatter vessel. Santiago Navarro is the CEO and co-founder of Garçon Wines, says this advances wine bottles into the 21st century.
We're developing packaging for Greta Thunberg's generation. We need to recognise that post-2020, post-2025, post-2030, nobody's going to drink wine from a heavy, space-inefficient bottle which has a grotesque and unnecessary carbon footprint.
The patented shape of the bottles also allows them to be stackable, increasing the efficiency of transportation and cutting logistical costs. Garçon Wines stemmed from supplying letterbox wine to UK gifting companies. They soon expanded their ambitions to offer sustainable packaging solutions for wholesale wines. Along with the letterbox-friendly single bottle boxes, the company has also pioneered what they say is the world's most compact wine case. Its design holds 10 bottles in a box that would otherwise only carry 4 round glass bottles of the same volume.
We make a flat wine bottle to save space, 40% spatially smaller as a result of the shape innovation. But we also make the bottle in 100% recycled PET. That's pre-existing material, not single-use plastic. We do that to save weight. We also do that to use a sustainable material source, which is light, strong, and looks like glass, a product we know and like.
Since launching in the UK in 2018, Garçon Wines made their international debut in the Netherlands this year and now have plans to take their innovative design global.
And before we go, thank you for joining us this evening on the day that 6 bodies were recovered from Whakaari, White Island. 2 people remain missing. The police say they will continue to search for them. Don't forget, you can see all our stories from today online, especially the video packages. And thanks for being with us this week. Enjoy your weekend. That's all from Checkpoint this evening. We will be back again on Monday.
RNZ News headlines. I'm Catriona McLeod. The 6 bodies recovered from Whakaari, White Island this morning are being transported to Auckland for post-mortems. The Chief Coroner says a dedicated team is working as hard as possible to identify and return the deceased to their families as quickly as possible. Fire and Emergency has announced fire restrictions in Canterbury districts of Christchurch, Hurunui, Selwyn and Waimakariri from midnight tonight. And the Conservatives have won the UK's third election less than 5 years, with Labour suffering huge defeats in seats it has traditionally held. Those are the headlines. Our next news is at 7. It is now 29 minutes to 7, and that's time for Trending Now, our feature highlighting the stories you've been sharing via digital and social media ahead of this week's edition of Focus on